Welcome to the Divorce Survival Guide podcast, where we have open and honest conversations about co-parenting, separation, divorce, and the hardest question of all, should you stay or should you go? I'm Kate Anthony, your divorce survival guide, and I'm here to help you navigate some of the roughest waters you've ever swum in and answer some of your toughest questions. I've been to hell and back, and now it's my mission in life to help you get to the other side of this process with your sanity and your heart intact.
Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm going to talk to you today about some of the things, the patterns that I see in working with clients and share some insights from those stories with you so that you can hopefully apply them to your own divorces, your own processes, and your own therapies, all of that. One thing that I wanted to point out, I have two clients that are struggling with similar things, and the way that they're handling them is very different. It's sort of, well, they're in different places, right? And I'm not disparaging where anybody is or what's happening, but this is sort of important. One is a client that I worked with a few months ago, and I had explained to her specifically how to document her experiences with her ex-husband throughout the process, because her emotions were kind of getting the best of her. And I outlined very specifically how to document, which I will explain to you in a minute, so that it would matter to the court, so that a judge could look at it and say, oh, right, okay, that makes sense. I understand. And now I have to make this ruling. I spoke with her again this past week, and she said that she followed my instructions to the letter and she got everything that she asked for when she went into court. Now, that doesn't always happen, obviously. It's the luck of the draw, right? She happens to have a judge who is trained in being child-centered. This judge used to be a guardian ad litem, I think. So this judge actually is trained in what is best for the children, which most judges are not. So it really also is the luck of the draw. And the way that she was able to present information was key in having this judge actually understand what was happening in the household and make the judgments that he did. So in contrast, I spoke with another client recently, and this was our first call, right? And I essentially had the same conversation I had with the other client a few months ago. Where she's at is they're still in the house together, and she is so emotionally wrecked. She is being gaslit, she is being abused, and she's trying to work with an attorney, and frankly, the abuse is also crosses the line into child abuse, into some pretty serious areas that are really concerning. And when I talked to her, I said, have you spoken to your attorney? Have you listed out all of these things? And she said, well, yes. And I said, tell me exactly what you said. And it turned out that it was because of the abuse and because of the gaslighting and because of the trauma. When she's trying to explain what's happening in the house, it's not coming out in a sort of linear fashion. It's coming out emotionally. And it's mostly about how he's treating her. And I had to say to her, as much as I care and as much as the way he's treating you is horrible, the court needs to hear, if in order to protect your children, the court needs to hear how he's treating the children only. The court doesn't care how he's treating you, because on the one hand, right, you're getting divorced, right? So the court views it as high conflict or as some form of conflict between two parties. It's a relationship dynamic. The court doesn't care about that. I know it's not a relationship dynamic. I know that it's domestic abuse. I know that this is gaslighting. The court doesn't see it that way and they don't care. As far as they're concerned, this is a bad relationship dynamic. And so these people are breaking up, right? And that's what they should do. And once they break up, the dynamic should stop. We all know that that's not true. We understand that the quote dynamic is actually abuse, that it's only really coming from one direction. The court doesn't seem to see that. They don't seem to understand that. But more than that, it doesn't matter. Because if what you're trying to do is get away from this person, then, look, unless there is domestic violence and you need a restraining order and you need to get out, the level of proof and evidence and all of that you need for that, it's a really fucking high bar. So we have to understand that legally and strategically. But also, when it comes to protecting your children, your documentation must be specifically about the children. It needs to be brief, it needs to be clear, and it needs to be very specific. Here's how I want you guys to document. I don't know that we've talked about this before, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to create an email address for yourself. And it will essentially just be you can create a new email address for yourself for all of your divorce stuff, which would be good because then every time you check your regular email, you're not being inundated with all of this divorce-related stuff. Create a new email address. And I want you to send yourself an email. Every time there is something that is specific, that rises to the level that you think a judge would care about, and by the way, you can err on the side of, sharing too much information at this point because you're going to start to get used to the things that your attorney actually cares about and that a judge will care about. So, but let's say your husband screamed at the children and told them that their mom is ruining the family and doesn't love them anymore, or he threatens the children, or he hits one of the children. You're going to send an email from your regular email to this new account that you have set up. In the subject line, you're going to put the category, right? So you're going to send these by category. This category might be child abuse or child neglect, inappropriate behavior around children, something like that. And then you're going to write in the body of the email, X yelled at the children and told them that I am breaking up the family and that I don't love them anymore. So really like 1 to 2 sentences. That's it. You don't need context. You don't need, we were making sandwiches and then he came down the stairs and I could tell he was really, in a bad mood or what, no. Right? The context doesn't matter. Exactly what happened, the little moment of time. And then you're going to send that to yourself. And the reason you're doing this in an email is that it is now time and date stamped. If you use a specific category for the subject lines, maybe you're going to keep it in your notes. You're going to keep in your notes app. The categories might be financial abuse. It might be child abuse. It might be domestic abuse. It might be the categories are, child neglect. And then the email might say, children came home from 4 days at their father's. They had not been bathed and their hair had not been washed and was in a tangled rat's nest that I had to take them to the hairdresser to untangle. If each of these things has all these specific categories, then when it comes time to share this information with your attorney, you're going to sort these emails by category in your inbox, and you will have a timeline. You will have a very clear timeline for each category. And then all of those emails can then be categorized and then submitted as evidence. When we say, everyone always says document, document, document. When we say document, 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 few people actually talk about what it means or how you're going to do that. So that is one way of clearly documenting. But again, you want to make sure that you're documenting the things that matter. Now, this is where it is so difficult for women who are being abused because, like I said, the example I gave about my second client, she is so emotionally distraught, she cannot get through a sentence without sobbing. And unfortunately, that is not going to help her get through this divorce, right? This is when I talk about we've got to process the emotions before we start down the road of this process. This is why, because if you're still so emotionally heightened, which you probably will be if you're being abused by somebody and you're still living in the house with them, you can't heal from trauma you are still experiencing. It doesn't work. It can't work. Your nervous system cannot safely come to rest because it is constantly under threat, nor should it, right? Like it shouldn't because you're under threat. And your nervous system knows that. So the only way for you to begin to access the executive function, the logic, the rational brain, all of the things that you're going to need to organize yourself in a way that you can have a strategically appropriate approach to your divorce is if you are free of the threat so that your central nervous system can begin to decompress and come to safety, at which point you can then start to think rationally. Because when your amygdala, which is the trauma center of your brain, when that is activated, that is your fight, flight, or freeze portion of your brain. And when that is activated, the prefrontal cortex that is responsible for rational thought and executive function and all of the things that are needed for effective strategy goes to sleep. Those two parts of the brain can't function at the same time. It takes about, I was talking to my friend Tony Overbay. He came in as a special guest expert in Phoenix Rising, my group program for women going through divorce. And he came in and we had an amazing conversation. And I think Tony said that it takes about 2 weeks for the brain to start to feel like, okay, I'm safe. But you have to be out for those 2 weeks, right? So if you're in a situation where you're so emotionally over the top that you just cannot get it together, you can't pull yourself together to think rationally and strategically and all of the things, I need you to find a way to get out. I need you to take at least 2 weeks. I have another client who has so much brain fog. She also has long COVID. She's got all sorts of things going on and she can't think straight to get herself out. And I just said, you know what? And she doesn't have kids. So I said, get out for 2 weeks, go to an Airbnb, see if you can get your brain online because we actually don't know what is long COVID and what is trauma, a trauma response from living in a house where you're not safe all the time. Let's get you to safety where you're not being emotionally abused so that your central nervous system can start to calm itself. Your brain, the executive function part of your brain can come back online, or at least the parts of it that are still functioning, but we don't even know. And so she's out and already feeling so much relief. And I hear this from women all the time, that once they are out of the space, the relief is very, very quick, very, very quick, where they start to go, oh, holy shit. Okay. Now, I think it still takes that 2 weeks to know that this safety is like, it's okay to be safe. You're safe to be safe, essentially. I know women who have moved out because I've said, you actually cannot strategize. It's like redoing your will on your deathbed. Like if you're not in your right mind, if you're under duress, none of the legal decisions that you're making right now should actually hold up because you're not in your right mind while you are living in this level of gaslighting and abuse. I'm just, giving you these examples of clients because I need you. If you are, like I said, one of these people that's so emotionally heightened and you're not thinking clearly, it's really hard to think. So the catch-22 is that you kind of need to think clearly in order to get to a place where you can think clearly, right? So sometimes what you just need to do is, call a parent, call a friend, just somebody and say, I need you to help me get out of here. I need you to help me figure X out because I can't think. I can't think while I'm still here, and I need support around getting out so that I can start to think. Borrow a brain. Seriously, borrow a brain. Honestly, that's half of what I do. When I work with clients, I am their brain. They're borrowing my brain. That's what a really good coach does. So we make this plan. And, if you are, looking for that additional support, that's what I do with my clients. I do still have the 3 and 6 pack sessions available, the focus strategy sessions. So go ahead and book yourself some sessions, because if you need to borrow a brain, come and borrow mine. There's another woman that I know who is she's being so badly abused, and she is being so badly financially abused. She has zero access to any of her money. And so she can't get out. She can't hire an attorney. She can't go in for a consultation to an attorney because she doesn't have $350 or whatever it is for a consultation. And then when she's called domestic violence hotlines or shelters to try to get access to legal aid, the hoops that she's having to jump through are so enormous, and it's so hard to find anybody answering the phones because these places are overrun, because this is a fucking crisis. These places are so overrun that she can't get a hold of anybody, and all she can do is curl up in a ball and continue to be abused because she doesn't have the brain power. She doesn't have the executive function to be able to take the next step. So I am going to be working with her this week to get her to a place where she can, what she needs is a temporary order. She needs a temporary support order. That's what she needs. She probably needs to go ex parte before a judge. Ex parte means it's an emergency order. It means ex parte means without the other party present. So she can go with her attorney in front of the judge, and the judge will order a temporary support order so that she can have access to some money so that she can start the process. Now, if your brain is going, I don't know how to do that. How would she? Right, exactly. And now she's in trauma. She's in so much trauma that she cannot figure out how to do that because it's hard. So I'm going to be working with her this week to try to get this happening for her so that she can get away and get separated from this man who is psychologically torturing her, so that she can begin to think rationally and logically, and so that she can start the process of more fully separating. This is why gaslighting works so well, because when you can't trust your own sense of reality, because that's what the gaslighting does, you can't trust anything that you think, or and you can't see the forest for the trees. You just can't. It all looks like a big giant fucking forest, and you cannot figure out how to get through or around or over or anything, all of these fucking trees. So if you need to borrow a brain, borrow a brain. If you need to borrow mine, borrow mine. If you need to borrow your best friend's, do it. There is nothing wrong with you. There is abso-fucking-lutely nothing wrong with you. The only thing wrong with you is that you are being abused. Abuse is not a relationship dynamic. It's not a relationship problem. It's not high conflict. It's abuse. Like I said, if you need to borrow a brain, explain it as best you can to someone who understands. The problem is that so few people do understand. They do think it's a dynamic. They do think that it's a, relationship problem. People who have told you to leave this guy for as long as they have and don't understand the reason why you are still there, right? Why does she stay? If it's so bad, why does she stay? God damn it. These are the reasons. This is why, among a million other things, because it's too hard, because we can't figure it out, because we can't see the forest for the trees. What I want you to do is borrow the brain of somebody who is compassionate and understands what is happening. Ideally, you borrow the brain of somebody who is a professional in this industry or has, a therapist or somebody who actually understands the dynamic. But if you can't afford that or you can't find that, borrow a friend who at least is compassionate and willing to fucking learn. And you can send them this podcast episode. Send this episode to your friend and say, I need to borrow your brain and I need you to listen to this so that you understand what I'm asking. My loves, next week is Christmas and Hanukkah. I'm going to be not doing a new episode next week. I'm going to resurface one that's awesome and very highly rated. You guys loved it before, and you will love it again. It is about healing from narcissistic relationships with Carrie McAvoy, who I just think is amazing and genius. And I will have her back on actually in the new year. But for now, I want you to enjoy this holiday period as much as you can. Practice as much self-care and self-compassion and self-love as you possibly can. No matter where you are in your journey or in your process, you're exactly where you need to be. Do not judge yourself for not being further along. Do not judge yourself for being too far along, whatever, right? This is where you're at. There is help available. January is known as divorce month because once we get through the holidays, people want to get this ball rolling. So if you're one of those people that you're just white knuckling it until the holidays are over, I'm here for you. I will be here in January. I'm going to hit the ground running like you are. So gift yourself, if you can, some sessions with me. Borrow my brain if you can, but gift yourself more than anything some compassion, some self-love, and some self-care. And have a very Merry Christmas, a very Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. May it be joyous and bright and loving. And if you have children, focus on them and allow this time to be as magical as it can possibly be. And the rest will be waiting on the other side in January. I love you so, so very much.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Divorce Survival Guide podcast. If you like what you hear, head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in and leave me a review. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at the Divorce Survival Guide. I'll see you next time, and until then, remember, you, my love, deserve to be happy.